Hello there, Senators, and welcome back to Star Wars Democracy. We're going to be talking about the Acolyte Episode 6, Teach and Corrupt tonight. We have a lot to get into, but first, if you're new here, if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, that would really help out the channel a lot. We actually just hit 750 subscribers today, and the goal is to get to 1,000 as quickly as possible, and we are well on our way there. So if you're new, watching this live stream, watching this video on the playback, if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, that would be really, really awesome. I have with me tonight Journeyman, as always. How are you, Journeyman?
Good. Just finished the episode and excited to talk about it.
Yeah, so it was a pretty fun one. I feel like it was a little bit different than some of the ones that we've gotten the past couple of weeks. Of course, coming off of last week, it's a little bit hard to top an action sequence when the entirety of an episode is an action sequence.
Mhm.
And then it was just interesting. I think we should save our thoughts and our ratings of what we thought the episode was until after we kind of get into some of the details. But I named the title of this stream "All Signs Point to This Sith Lord Making an Appearance and the Acolyte," and I really wanted to kind of start there because there's been a lot of talk this week about, especially after last week, coming off of the Stranger, as he's now dubbed. Did you know he's now called the Stranger, Chimere? So
Mhm.
the Star Wars has officially released that the name of this character is the Stranger. Chimere was simply an alias of sorts, and so he's
I'm still
officially
gonna call
dubbed
him
the
Kanye. I
Stranger.
don't
Yeah,
care.
me too. I'm gonna call him Chimere slash the Stranger. Um, but anyway, a lot of theories from last week on who this guy is. When Saul talks about, yeah, what are you? And he's like, a Jedi like you might call me Sith. And so it's like, is he a Sith? I don't know if you caught this. We really haven't talked about it a ton. I don't think on stream, but did you know that we hear Kylo Ren's theme twice in episode 5?
Mhm.
So Kylo Ren's theme plays twice in episode 5. And what's interesting is it doesn't play doesn't play in scenes where the stranger is. A lot of people are suspecting that the stranger Chimere could potentially be one of the first Knights of Ren or the first Knight of Ren, just like
Mhm.
Kylo was leader of the Knights of Ren. I mean, he kind of has the mask going on. Um,
He kind of has
Similar
a
vibes.
similar mask to
Yeah, yeah.
Kylo.
Yeah, so a lot of people are suspecting that maybe he kind of got the Knights of Ren started, or he's a part of affiliated with the Knights of Ren. Um, but what's interesting, and I believe I saw Mike, a guy who loves Star Wars, point this out, is we don't hear Kylo Ren's theme in episode 5. We hear it twice. We hear it at the beginning of the episode, we hear it at the end of the episode, and it's when we see Osha, not the
Mm.
stranger Chimere. And so we'll get into talking a little bit about that. But for all intents and purposes of the stream, who is Chimere? He says some might call me a Sith. So is he a Sith? Is he a Knights of Ren? I don't know. My theory is I think by the end of this series, we're going to see none other than Darth Tenebris himself. Now, Journeyman, you might ask, who is Darth Tenebris? Or do you know who Tenebris is?
Uh, I gotta do some knowledge. Isn't he? He's not. Wasn't he the guy?
Just ask the question. Say, who is Darth Tenebris?
Okay, who's Darth Tenebris?
Okay, Darth Tenebris is Darth Plagueis's master. So you have
Right.
Sidious, Plagueis, Tenebris, and why don't you go ahead and do what you did for us last week and pull up the information, and we'll
Yep.
consult you here in a little bit. But I'll tell you what I know about Tenebris, and you can fill in the gaps. But Tenebris
Hmm.
was a was part of the species the Bith, and ends up becoming a Sith Lord, obviously through the rule of two, with the rule of two that Darth Bane started. He is a successor to that, and he is kind of like one of the first ones to start initiating the means of which the Sith hope to accomplish ruling the galaxy. He's kind of begins
Hmm.
that process. Um, what's really interesting, I believe I heard this in a video. He doesn't really. he sees the Force as it's hard to explain, but doesn't really view the Force as you would expect a Sith Lord to view the Force. Um,
Mm,
in a lot of ways, he kind of views it in the same way as I feel like the Witch Coven does, actually. And it's like he doesn't really perceive it as the Force. It's more so, um, he sees it as a means to almost create and do things. Um, so he's interesting, and I think that he's like an engineer as well, and so like he's responsible for creating various starships. I believe also he is responsible for creating like Darth Maul's ship, or at least the design for Darth Maul's ship, which oddly enough kind of
interesting.
resembles the ship that we see in the Acolyte. Like Chimere, the stranger ship, kind of looks like Darth Maul's ship, and so there's kind of like
Hmm.
a small connection there. Um, and so another interesting thing about Darth Tenebris is he was the master to Darth Plagueis, but he also had a master, or I'm sorry, an apprentice named Darth Venomous. And this apprentice was a secret apprentice that Plagueis later found out about, and I believe Plagueis later kills. So, what I could see potentially unfolding here, and to piggyback off of that for a second, Darth Venomous also had apprentices of his own, a list of apprentices that could,
Hmm.
could potentially he could potentially train. Um, and so I think it's I think what we could see unfolding here potentially is a situation where Darth Tenebris is the master, as many have suspected. Chimere
Hmm.
is an apprentice, but not an apprentice, not Darth Plagueis. Chimere could be a Darth Venomous character, not necessarily, maybe he's not called Darth Venomous, but this stranger could be a secret apprentice to Darth Tenebris, and we could see that being played out. We could see that being played out. And I'm wondering if we don't see Darth Tenebris at the end of the series, perhaps we see Darth Plagueis, and maybe Plagueis confronts the
Hmm.
stranger or Chimere. So do you have some information pulled up?
Um, well, when I heard Tenebris, because I was trying to think back to theories, like videos
Mm-hmm.
a lot, because that's what we grew up watching to get a lot of our
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars knowledge. And I thought Tenebris was like he wasn't obsessed with like switching bodies, but that maybe I'm thinking of Plagueis, and that's because he was
No, I think
he
you're
was
actually right.
obsessed with
I think
he was
Tenebris
like the guy
was
that was switching bodies, right?
I believe Tenebris did kind of started to um fiddle with the ability to transfer his essence. I believe. I could be wrong on that. Someone if someone's in the chat, you might correct me on that, or feel free to share what knowledge you have on Tenebris um yourself in the chat. Um there's a couple
Okay,
people
here,
here.
just to kind of interesting thing. Didn't Chimere say his helmet was like
Cortosis.
Corto, but didn't he say like it helped block out everything? Like you couldn't get
Yes.
inside his head.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, so like telekinesis, basically, like it blocked out that
It basically
ability.
blocked out everything other than the ability for the one who had the helmet on, just to basically be in tune with the Force, is what he said. It blocks out
Well,
everything but the Force.
and it's interesting that like I think that kind of signals Tenebris, but I could be wrong. Because like if he's doing that, then why would you need that helmet if not to like get away from like his abilities or whatever?
Yeah, it certainly could. Couple comments here. We have on program in the chat. Good to see you on program. Thank you for joining us here. On Program has a channel that I just learned about actually, and actually I learned about it from Travis. So if you want a other Star Wars podcast, I got a little bit of a glimpse of his podcast today. So go check his channel out. Sounds like good stuff over there. We have Star Wars Politics in the chat. It says Plagueis is moon species, correct? Yes. Plagueis is the moon species, same species that you see leading the banking clan in, I believe it's Attack of the Clones. And I believe Plagueis himself was actually in charge of that clan at one point. So on
If you
Program
want to
says,
under,
yeah, just a second. On
yep.
Program says, yeah, he was in Legends, but so far I don't think his species has been canonized. Yeah, well, no, there's a Bith, I believe, in I want to say it's either the Cantina in episode 4 or episode 6. I think he's like playing like a clarinet type instrument or something. I think his species is in one of those,
Mhm.
but I could be thinking of something else. Um, Star Wars Politics says I've not read the Plagueis novel, just a YouTube summary video. Would love to buy it. And yeah, I'm not sure at the end there, but I agree. In Star Wars Politics, I know you're a lot of times in Star Wars Santa's chat, and he's absolutely correct. There's a lot of great ways to get audiobooks, especially Legends material. That's what I'm doing right now is going through the Fate of the Jedi on Spotify Premium, and there's a lot of ways. So don't always have to get a physical copy. You can get an e-copy through the Kindle, or also just listen to the audiobook. It's a lot of fun. Um, you followed the thought with and catch up with everyone else. Yes. Cantina band. Yeah, I believe there's a Bith in the Cantina band. I think that's what I was thinking of. Okay, did you have something, Journeyman?
Yeah. So to kind of get a more of his story, he was fixated with comprehending and shaping the future, which his apprentice plague is considered to be a byproduct of the Bith intelligence, whatever that means. But I think that's his like motivation for a lot. So it wasn't necessarily like dying, I guess, because I later read on that like um he could see his demise happening, which even Plague or Sidious um he was able to foresee his own death, something even Darth Sidious and Darth Cadius were unable to do. So, like, just in terms of powerful, like, force user, like, he's pretty
Pretty powerful.
powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of in and like I said, he was also like an engineer. That's kind of one of the in my research of what I know about him, that's a word that's thrown out a lot. He's very technical savvy. And
Hmm.
I think that's where I was trying to go earlier. It was like he uses the force, but he really saw that the force almost was kind of like secondary. He believed that like technology could be so well advanced that the force may not even be necessary. I believe that that is a accurate take on that, but someone may want to
Yeah,
correct me. Is
yeah.
that right? Is that what it says?
Uh, he even believed that the Sith grand plan could be achieved.
If you
No,
find it, let me know.
yeah,
Um,
go
on
ahead.
Program says, sorry, I meant Darth Plagueis himself hasn't been canonized as a moon nor Tenebris as a Bith. The species are totally canon. My bad. Yeah, no worries. On Program. I based off the very little I saw of your podcast today, I was like, this guy knows his Star Wars, so that couldn't have been necessarily what he meant. So all good there. Star Wars Politics says, I think they're all Bith, the Cantina band. I believe you're correct too. So yeah, we have settled the debate. They are indeed uh Biths, and yeah, there are indeed Biths in the Star Wars universe. So um what else? What else have you been able to find on Tenebris, Journeyman? Anything else worth
Um,
sharing?
well, I'll just kind of read the whole thing. So, Tenebrous had a fixation with comprehending and shaping the future, which its apprentice, Darth Plague, is considered to be a byproduct of the Bith intelligence, which was grounded in mathematics and computation. So,
There you
to
go.
me, that sounds like what you were saying earlier. It's like
Hmm.
it's kind of secondary to what he was using it for. Like
Hmm.
he's kind of like the scientist, I guess, of the Force at
Yeah.
that stage.
Which a lot of the Sith Lords were kind of like scientists. That's kind of where the idea of wanting to use the midichlorians to create life comes from.
Hmm.
Like I said, I've tried to watch a few videos on the Sith, especially the Darth Bane lineage. The Darth Bane being the one who established the rule of two, and kind of like what that looks like. There's only a few known Sith Lords that have been explored in Legends, and probably obviously less in canon. And so I I think it's just interesting. Another key point, I don't think I brought this up yet, is there's something with the reactor. I don't know the reactor with the Witch Coven. It seems a little technical. Maybe that wasn't necessarily just something that you would uh, power up the Witch Coven's fortress with. Maybe it was had something to do with the way that the twins were created. Um, you know what I mean when I'm talking about the reactor in episode 3?
No, explain it. Sorry.
Well, the reactors we see the the reactor first, like at the beginning of the episode with the twins. It like makes a sound, and Mother Coral like
Oh
goes and looks
yeah,
at it, and then it blows up at the end of the episode, and that's what
right.
kind of triggers May and Osha. Osha, or no, May falls, Osha almost falls. So there's something
Right.
with that reactor, and I'm almost wondering if there's a. It's not. I was thinking the reactor was just like to power up the fortress or something, but
Hmm.
some are suspecting that it could also have to do with how the twins were actually created. Because if there's anything that we learned from episode 3, I think a lot of people just took away the fact that the force was used to, in some way, shape, or form, conceive the twins. But when Coral says, "What if they learn? What if they find out how you did it?" I almost wonder if the Sith are going to be involved with that. Perhaps Tenebris, or perhaps even
Hmm.
Tenebris's master. We're not sure exactly the timeline of things. So,
And
um,
just another cool force ability, just for everyone out there. He possessed the rare ability to use red force lightning. So we've
there you
always
go.
seen Palpatine do blue, but like it's very rare.
Yeah,
Which I think that'd be really cool to see
yeah, um,
if it goes that
yeah,
way. But
yeah. It is. It could definitely go that way. And I just, to keep it brief a little bit on the Sith Lord stuff. I think all signs are starting to point to the fact that we could definitely be seeing Tenebris make an appearance. For anybody who's just joining, I think what we're going to see is Plagueis is there, and then Chimere, otherwise known as the Stranger, is a secret apprentice to Tenebris, similar to Darth Venomous in Legends. So that's my
yeah,
story, and I'm sticking to it. On program says, what is the over under that they just go in a different direction entirely from Legends? Plagueis is canon, but do we think they'll throw out the Tenebris angle? My heart, well, let me start this way. My brain on program tells me that logically, no. Knowing Disney, knowing what they've done in the past, I don't think I don't know that they'll go this angle. Obviously, they kind of have to stick with Plagueis to a degree, but will they include Tenebris coming from Legends? It's if they don't bring in Tenebris, I'm sure it will be something very similar. Um,
I, yeah,
no, that's my brain. Now my heart wants to believe that they'll stick with it. And I will say this. Leslie Headland, as some are calling it, damage control, has gone and done some interviews of the past couple of weeks where she, and we're kind of jumping ahead here, she all but pretty much told everyone before the episode came out that um, Soul knew that it was May the whole time. She she confirmed that before the episode even dropped. She
it
was
kind
like,
of seemed that way,
yeah, I
anyways.
mean, I think everybody kind of
From
figured that's what it
yeah,
was going to be. But yeah, she was like, oh yeah, he knew the whole time. So that was interesting. And she also has pointed out that there could be, like, after the finale, we could be having conversations about what they pulled in from Legends. That's not an exact quote, but she was hinting at the fact that there could potentially be Legends material being brought in. In addition to that, there is someone who is cast. What am I trying to say? Someone has been casted, a actor of not like a big time actor. I don't think I'm gonna try to find his name real quick. Um, but it's a guy who is a bigger actor and he's a small role. A lot of people are wondering if that actor is going to be a Plagueis or some type of Sith Master that we see at the end. Um, Let me see if I can find that name real quick.
I kind of feel like I know we have a name drop of Plagueis in episode in Revenge of the Sith, but if they do make it Plagueis, or really even if we get full out Plagueis at that point, it kind of has to be reconciled that Tenebris was the master of him. So like, no matter how you do it, whether they bring him in or not, like if they're or if you bring them in at that point, a lot of stuff is kind of canonized
Yeah.
about it, even though they won't say canon, but it's a lot of it's canonized at that point.
Well, like I said, um I mean, they could bring in Tenebris, but maybe they just do a variation of it. I think that's what's happening. I mean, obviously,
Yeah, yeah,
I don't think Chimere the Stranger is going to be Darth Venomous, but I just suspect that maybe that's the direction that they're going to go with
sure.
this character. The Acolyte. So this is Star Wars Newsnet uh, articles titled "The Acolyte Rumor: David Harewood joins the cast in small role." So this person. David Harewood has played in the CW Supergirl series, and so fairly well-known actor, um, big actor, has a small role in the series. Which I feel like anytime you hear a relatively big actor is going to play a small role, that means that they're going to be playing a big character. That's
Yeah,
just that's the way it goes. So that was a very long-winded answer for that on program.
yeah.
Uh, Star Wars Politics says, "You will never believe my 5-point bonus prediction this week for Star Wars Santa's prediction game. I made 3 to 4 major predictions in one comment and nailed them all 100%." Well, I'll be watching his stream tomorrow, Politics, and so I'll see you there. I went safe and just said that we will see Vanestra Rose purple lightsaber. So I got my point. So hopefully he gives you your 5 points. Um, on program says, and how do we think general audiences would react to a live action Biff as a main character? Um, I think I I think it would be fairly well received. I think as long as the I don't know a lot about the Biff species, but as long as we're not having like odd subtitles or an odd alien language. I think that as long as Tenebris or a Biff as a main character had that dark and menacing persona as our Sith Lords that we know do, I think it will be well received. It actually leads me to a point where um, we could just talk about this now.
Sure.
How did you like Chimera the Stranger's character in this episode? What'd
It's
you think?
different. It's different from the angle that we thought we were gonna get, I guess. But seeing now both sides of it on both sides, I kind of like the duality of the whole episode.
Mhm.
Like it's opposites on both sides. Like you have, I feel like what each person is going to try and do, maybe not Soul to a degree, but definitely for Chimera, he's going to try and turn May or Osha. And
Yeah.
then to a degree, Soul might be trying to reach May and trying to get her to turn. And
Yeah.
so, like, you have both of them kind of trying to do their own thing.
Well,
Chimera
just
specifically,
mhm.
I didn't I didn't really like it. I understand it though. He's trying to get into the head of her. Like he's playing to the person. part of her, not the Jedi part of her, and that's where a lot of Sith deal with
Yeah,
people,
yeah.
anyways.
Well, one thing that I kind of had an issue with, and I'd love to get everybody's opinions in the chat as well. Um, Something I've kind of struggled with. I struggled a little bit with last week, and I'm struggling with it again this week. Um, Chimera to me does not fit the persona. Going back to what we were just talking about in on program's comment, I'm
Hmm.
struggling with seeing him as a potential Sith. Um, Leslie Headland has said that we will see at least two. I believe she said we will have see two Sith in this series. So I gotta believe that people are like, is he a Sith? Is he not a Sith? I gotta believe that Chimera slash the Stranger slash whatever you want to call him is a Sith. It just kind of feels that way. Um, and then I think what we're as we've been talking about Tenebris and potentially Plagueis, I think we're going to see another Sith, potentially one of those two by the end of the series. I'm struggling. I don't feel like Chimera has that same persona as a Sith as we normally see. We're so used to characters like Vader and Palpatine slash Sidious.
It's very macho, very like
It's very
in your
dark
face,
and just very,
very dark.
the voice is very,
Hmm.
deep and menacing. Darth Maul kind of had that same vibe. I mean, he hardly spoke at all. Um,
Although my counter to your point, which you're about to make, is kind of the argument that we had for Kylo, right? Like we thought the voice was so menacing because he had the helmet on, and
mhm.
then when we heard this voice outside the helmet, we're like, um, "Excuse me, is that the character that like we were all thinking of?"
Yeah.
Like the face does not match the voice of the whole thing, and it's like a shock. So to your
Mhm.
point, that would be my counter. It's like we've kind of seen this before, though.
Yeah, but also Kylo wasn't a Sith either. So, I mean, I'm just
No,
saying, like,
but
for a Sith Lord, if this guy is really supposed to be a Sith Lord, which y'all let me know in the chat, if you think that the stranger is going to be a Sith apprentice, Sith Lord, let me know. But for the yes, is he powerful? Obviously. Does he have? I mean, the way he was disappearing in the woods in episode 5 and showing back up, and a lot of what he was saying was very. Uh, mm, well, it's like when he said to Jackie, was that its name? Um, that kind of stuff was like very like you could feel that he had no heart, obviously.
no.
So he had some Sith-like qualities, but I'm kind of just struggling a little bit seeing him as a Sith. But that's just me. I saw this comment. I just have to bring it up.
Yep, I
Chimera
know.
is
I
certainly
saw it too.
bringing new meaning to Seduced by the Dark Side. I was like, are they really going to go this far in this episode show? And I was like, okay.
Am I, are we all surprised though that it got even that close?
I,
Just like that's what Star Wars is, and I'm like, I'm not surprised anymore. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, what are we
I was
doing?
like, how are they going to handle this? And it was kind of interesting. Like, I just have a lot of problems. Uh, okay, I'm gonna try to keep positive as best I can here. I just feel like they're having a lot of missed opportunities. Like the way he was just like swimming in the water when Osha sneaking up on him, um, and then just some of the dialogue. Ah, I'm one of those people where I can't like quote the dialogue on stream because I got to go back and watch the episode because I forget a lot of stuff. But there was a point where she was like, "You killed Yord," and then he was like, "Blah blah blah." She's like, "You killed Jackie," and then he was like, "Blah blah blah," and it's just like the dialogue. It's just one of those things where I guess it's just Star Wars. I don't know, but um,
Yeah, I kind of at this point, I, not that it bothers me that badly, but you kind of gotta look past that and kind of towards
yeah,
the nonverbal stuff and kind of really get into the story that way. And that's kind of what I was looking for. Like, if you get past the dialogue and like how the characters really acted, because I'm taking his acting for kind of Palpatine when he was like uh, not Emperor, but like
mm-hmm.
before he turned to Emperor Palpatine, you know? Like before
Mhm.
episode 3 where he actually went wrong, like he got zapped with lightning. That's kind of how I picture him now. Although he would probably never swim in a lake or whatever and get that close
Well,
to
and I will say
but
they kinda they saved it a little bit when he was like what did he say? He was like, um, something along the lines of, you feel guilty about striking me down, like, killing me like this." Like, I mean, he basically, like, "I don't have any
plain,
clothes, I don't
yeah.
have a weapon, I'm completely, minus the Force and my Force abilities, like,
I'm defenseless, yeah.
I'm defenseless, and you're a Jedi, and you feel guilty, or you were a Jedi. You you can't do this." So they kind of redeemed it a little bit there of like that there was a point behind it. I feel like what he
Very
was trying to do, but it still just seemed a little bit kind of odd.
sure.
Minus that, I don't know. Like again, just kind of the way that he talks. I don't know. We'll see how he. We'll see what they end up doing, but um, I hope that he could put back on the mask and become a little bit more menacing. As Travis has said, he a lot of times he comes across as like the comedic relief in a Transformers movie, and I'm like, is that the guy you want to be a Sith Lord? Like you're talking Palpatine, you're talking uh, Vader and Dooku and Maul and all these Sith that we've known, and you got Chimere, but who knows? Maybe he's not going to be a Sith at all. Speaking of Travis, I don't know if I pointed out that Travis is in the chat, but Travis is in the chat. Thank you for being here, Travis. Good to see you, buddy. Um, let's see. Star Wars Politics says, I just love how you guys like to keep things positive. It's not cool when everyone is Debbie Downers. I love to speculate and predict when we are correct. It's very rewarding and worth the watch. Absolutely, yeah. That's why I'm trying to. I mean, I've loved the show so far. I think it's been really fun to speculate and predict. My heart will always be with Ahsoka, the Ahsoka show. I don't think anything can top the Ahsoka show and the speculation that we had last week with Travis and Journeyman about Abeloth. Like that's my stuff. But I still have had a lot of fun speculating about this show and where it could go. And we're gonna get into a lot of speculation. We've barely even scratched the surface on things in this episode. So um Star Wars Politics says, I feel like Disney has proven already that they clearly have no respect for this fandom and will do what they please, just my feelings. Yeah, I mean,
To a
the
degree.
thing is, Star Wars Politics is, I feel that way a lot. I'm like, Disney has no idea what they're doing, but then they've given us shows like The Mandalorian. They've given us shows like Ahsoka. They've given us they I feel like they've tried in a lot of ways. They just don't execute very well. Like they gave us a Kenobi show. Like a lot of times they know what the fans kind of want. It's just like it just doesn't get executed
They don't put the
the
right people
best.
in place for it to be executed.
I
And
suppose. Yeah,
that's the problem.
I suppose. Um, on program says it's awesome that it really does seem like a serious possibility. It's very exciting to have legend material being taken so seriously with the Thrawn inclusion and the Abeloth teethers you guys covered. Yeah, absolutely. Um, I think that there was someone I saw Jason Ward from Making Star Wars on Star Wars Santa's stream, Star Wars Politics. You may have been here. I think it was last Friday's stream. And Jason Ward was talking about how it's not likely that they're going to be including Abeloth after we just had a whole almost 2 hour stream between Journeyman and Travis and I on Thursday about how it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. And then Jason Ward, who's making Star Wars, who's an insider, was like, no, it's not gonna happen. Like they're not gonna go that direction. I'm just like, I just I can't believe that. I have to have hope that they're still going to take this legend stuff and run with it. So um yeah.
If
Uh
they're not doing that, what story are they telling at that point? Like I'm
you know,
confused at
I
the
think a
story.
lot of people think that they just are going to make up their own stuff, you
Interesting.
know? And well, and
Okay.
just kind of like maybe bring in pieces and elements of things, but for the most part, they're just going to do their own thing. Let's see. On program says he was on Octu, correct? How do we feel about seeing the photo negative of Luke training Rey to be a Jedi on the same planet? Balance? Yeah, that's a really good, I suppose, analogy on program. I personally believe that they're on Octu. In fact, that's one of the things that I wrote down is this is Octu. Even though it says it's an unknown planet, it looks just like Octu, and I didn't even necessarily make that jump, but that's an interesting. Uh, it would be interesting to have the Luke and Rey, Luke training Rey, and then the dark side of that being Chimere training Osha. Um, I don't. The last piece of that balance, I can't say that it's necessarily balance. It would seem as if there's balance, but there's a fascinating video that I posted, and Senator Tony, a member of the channel, actually posted this and wanted me to watch it. But it was all about the gray Jedi and how gray Jedi had been misunderstood. And balance in the Force does not mean there's just as many light side Force users Jedi as there is dark side Sith users. Balanced just simply means that there is no dark side being used. That the dark side is there, but just because something is there doesn't mean that it's used. To be balanced is to have a balanced approach in the light side of the Force. It doesn't mean that the dark side has to be utilized. That's a very poor way of explaining that video, but you can find it in the community tab. I linked it there. So Random Research, who I believe is new here, I haven't seen him in the chat before, or them in the chat before, says, but the Sith have been extinct for a millennia. Well, not anymore. They're back. And I feel like we're kind of jumping all over the place here, but it kind of seems like there's the Jedi or Vernestra Rowe was going to set up. Okay, so I have a lot of different takes on this. So we see Vernestra Rowe at the end of the episode, and my question is, do you think she knows that it was a Sith or a dark side Force user who wiped out those Jedi, and she's going to frame Saul so that the High Council doesn't figure out about it? Or do you think that she really potentially believes that Saul's the one who could have killed him? Because it looks like they're about to frame Saul one way or another for killing these Jedi.
Venester's the green one, right? The
Yes,
green.
with the purple.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
With the like whip.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, I think it says something about the writing and that the way they directed it for her to be not say anything. So like whether she wants to or not, I agree with you. I think they're gonna set it up that way, whether she knows or not, because she could have easily said to that other Jedi there on like, no, this wasn't Saul. Like, and she kind of did to a degree. Like, that's a strong accusation, but the way that was directed kind of seems like, but we kind of have to frame him, right? Like, we're kind of gonna have to, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it seemed like I wasn't sure. I was curious on what everybody's take was going to be on this because it was almost like she knew. She's like, this was not Saul. This was the work of something menacing, something dark. But you gotta the way that her motivations seems like I don't even know. She she doesn't want the Senate involved for the political reason of it. She doesn't want the High Council involved in anything. I can't really get her angle. It's almost like she wants to handle it herself. To I don't know, get she uses the word tip the scales a lot. And I was curious on what you think tipping the scales means, or someone in the chat when Vanessa Rowe keeps saying something to tip the scales, what do we think she means by that? Does she sense that there's something coming? I mean, she all but alludes to that in I think the first episode. But why is she so hesitant to bring in the High Council? Is it because she doesn't want the Senate to be involved? While
I
we're
mean, that's
dwelling on
fair.
that a little bit, um,
Mm.
hitting things with sticks says, "You're crazy if you think Leslie does anything to bring in anything from the Plagueis novel." Um, I don't know. I have to disagree with you there. I think that, I think that Leslie has done some things that, maybe I wouldn't have done if I was going to create the Acolyte. But I think that there's a really good shot that we see some Legends things. And I encourage you to go to Star Wars Meg's channel. A lot of what we've been talking about with Tenebris and um, the interview that Leslie did where she talked about including Legends material is I picked up on some of that from her video today. So I encourage you to go watch the video that she released today. On program follows up and says, I think there's a good shot. She's a big Legends fan. She's the reason we got Cortosis and Selkith. Yeah. So I think that there's a good chance. I think that there's a good chance. Hitting things with sticks says, nah, look at the scope of the story. They're way too terrified to affect the main canon like that. I think that I think you'll be pleasantly surprised hitting things with sticks. I think that by the end of the episode, I think that there is a good chance that we will see that. I just saw Senator Tony pop in chat. Good to see you, Senator Tony. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Says Vanestra killing that moth so fast indicates to us that she's under a lot of pressure. No reason why to show us that. She's like, yeah, just kill it. Let's move on. She is feeling pressure from somebody. It's kind of, I wonder, is it the High Council? Like, who is she feeling the pressure of to like make sure that stuff is in order? Because that's certainly what it feels like. And Senator Tony reminded me, for anybody who's here, if you're wanting to find a channel that's positive about Star Wars, that we're all about conversation and speculation and what's going to happen next in this universe, hit that subscribe button. We're at 700. I actually have to update it. I just saw we're actually at 751 subscribers. And so we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers as fast as possible. I really would appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It would mean a lot. So let's see. Star Wars Politics says Soul did use the dark side. Maybe they can sense it. He almost killed Kymir unarmed until Osha shouted his name. Yeah, Saul was very menacing at the end of this episode, I feel like. He was like, had May strapped down, and was like, I'm going to, what did he say? I'm going to tell you something or something
Like
along those
I've
lines.
had 16 years to
Yeah.
figure out what I would say if I
Yeah.
had an opportunity. So you're gonna sit here and you're gonna listen.
That was
And
weird.
so I think a lot of the emotions that he's feeling, whether right or wrong, they're all boiling up to a point. Like he's I think for years he's been dreading the day that he's actually gonna have to say something to his whole story. Whether Osha was there, whether May's there, he's got to open up. This is the like
Yeah.
we
Hmm.
we've all in real life had moments where it just boils over to a point that we can't we can't hold it in ourselves anymore. And I feel like he's at that point. He's like, I'm gonna say this, and it's gonna get off my chest. Like I need to
Hmm.
say this so that we can kind of all clear the room. And so
Well, and
we'll
it's
see what
also,
kind of version he'll give us.
and he's kind of turning his back on the Jedi a little bit here, right? I mean, when that transmission came through and they're like, stay there, we're on our way. He's like, nope, I'm going to handle this and go do it. Um, and so he has some interesting motivations. Star Wars Politics says, you are going to listen. Yeah, he's like, it was interesting. It was very interesting on how he was kind of, I think, the actor, can't ever remember his name, but does a really good job at portraying that character and just like the back and forth. He's very conflicted about whatever he did, and it's seeming like he had a big part on what happened to the witches. Whatever he did has been eating at him a very, very long time.
Yep.
Um, so yeah. Tony says, appears that Chimera is very, very old. Maybe we need to look back at the High Republic stories to find out his planet name and his former Jedi master. Not recent, apparently, and maybe not Saul's Padawan. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Tony. We haven't even touched on that. So we found out in this episode that Chimera was a Jedi. Um, and what's he they don't really come out and confirm this, at least that wasn't my impression. The scar on his back, he it's kind of left vague on how he received that. I think Osha was like, did you
Hinting
get
at
that
it,
from your
but yeah,
Jedi? Yeah, and he kind of like makes it seem like maybe he did. I'm not convinced that he did. But
yeah.
there's a weird story there. And I was one of those people last week when Chimera was, or when Soul was like, I sense something familiar when talking to Chimera, when he sees Chimera. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, he's just feeling what he did, when when he saw him on Olega, I believe was the planet's name in episode
I
2.
believe so. Yeah.
I was like, because he came in contact with him there, maybe that's it. But now that Chimera was a former Jedi, now I'm starting to wonder if there is a connection there with between Soul and Chimera as part of the
Yeah.
Jedi Order, possibly, possibly. Um, yeah, I don't know. Star Wars Politics says he literally has fled, which makes him look guilty as well, which is why the other Jedi mod assumed it was him and could obviously sense a dark presence. Yeah, he's not helping his case there for sure. And I think that's how they're going to end up getting around it. I think that Master Venestra knows that it was not Saul, knows that it was a some type of dark entity, menacing entity, perhaps even a Sith. And it's pretty clear at this point that I think she's going to be involved in the cover up and being like, nothing happened here. We just had a rogue Jedi, kill a bunch of people. I mean, you can frame it as he was too attached to his Padawan, blah 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 blah, and that's how you get around the Sith have been extinct for a millennia. Tony says when May reset Pip, it went to factory reset, and the light appears red. Sith, maybe, perhaps.
She factory reset it like an iPhone.
Yeah. Star Wars Politics says that was a big reveal that Chimera trained in the Jedi arts, was a Jedi. He clearly has knowledge of the dark side, but who taught him? Yeah. Perhaps Master Venestra. I don't know. Wouldn't that be something? Venestra
I
was the
mean,
one who trained Chimera?
so that's what hitting things with sticks said.
Oh,
It's
really?
like,
Did I miss that?
I think we're meant to infer that Venestra is a secret Sith.
Oh, here it is. Remember back when Jedi cared about innocent life forms? I think we're meant to infer that Vernestra is the secret Sith. Maybe. Gosh, I think that would make a lot of people mad, though. I haven't read the High Republic books, but for those who have read the High Republic books, how would you feel if Master Vernestra was indeed the secret Sith? I feel like people would be unhappy about that, but maybe I'm completely wrong. I don't know enough about her character. Yeah, I don't know enough about her
Yeah, I don't
character.
know much about her character either.
Yeah. Well, all in all, I think that the episode was fairly good, to kind of round it out. I certainly think we're on a fast track to figuring out who the person is pulling the strings. And you got to wonder if in a perfect world, I think what we would see is something play out on a smaller scale to how Palpatine does it. Palpatine is able to orchestrate a galactic war, uh, and that's very large scale, obviously. But I think what would be really interesting is to see how the Sith, even when they don't reveal themselves, I mean, Chimera revealed himself, but whoever's pulling the string, whoever is Chimera's master, um, I think it will be interesting to see. It would be cool to see how the Sith are able to manipulate things behind the scenes without actually having to ever fully come out of the shadows.
Yes.
That's kind of, at this point with the show, guys, like I'm liking the show. I'm not sure how big of implications it's going to have on the entire Star Wars canon. I mean, there's definitely the potential there. At this point, I'm just trying to have fun with it, and I'm trying not to over hype and oversell it to the point of like, oh, all of these things are going to happen. So to me,
Hmm.
I think what would really do it in the end is to see whether it be Plagueis or Tenebris or someone of the equivalent. Maybe they go a completely different direction. But I would
Yeah.
love to see at the end of this series a Sith who comes and is like everything is going exactly how we've planned it out, because that's what really is happening here, right? At this point in the timeline, this is when the Sith are starting to make their move. They're starting to make their move. The whole goal, the whole point of the Rule of Two and Darth Bane was to one day have the Sith take over the entire galaxy, which Palpatine does. And
Yep.
so that was their end goal. And so I think, to me, what will make this show successful, in my opinion, is one, if canon isn't broken. So they really have to do tread carefully on the whole Sith have been extinct for millennia. They have to treat that very carefully, which means
Hmm.
Soul probably has to die. So don't break canon, but also show me how what the Sith's plan was to get the ball rolling and taking over the entire galaxy. Like, that's the point of this show, is to start to see the Sith coming out and see their plan unfold. That way, it sheds more light on what we see Palpatine doing in the prequel
Hmm.
trilogy. So, um, yeah, let's see. Star Wars Politics says everyone keeps trying to frame the series around the whole Sith have been extinct for a millennia. It's a bit funny because we all sit here and watch Disney literally rewrite retcon history. I don't think that they'll retcon this one though. Star Wars Politics. I think that there's plenty of ways to get around this, to where that line can still be said, and we don't have to worry about this show breaking canon or stepping on the toes of that line, if that makes sense. Tony says episode is in transition to a whole new storyline. Well directed and good storyline. Keep me watching and listening for clues. 8 out of 10. Yeah. I think the show is good. We haven't even given our scores yet. What would you say, Journeyman, for this one out of 10?
Mm, I like the duality. This this story overall is pretty intriguing. I feel like we're in episode 6, right? So we have
Mm-hmm.
two more episodes.
Two more. Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we're gonna get a lot of back. Like we're gonna finally probably learn a lot on both sides of the coin, because I feel
Yeah.
like that's the way they're doing this. Like they're setting it up to where we get uh, um, Chimera's side of it, and we're gonna get Soul's side of it, and we're gonna
Mm-hmm.
kind of have a meeting of the minds as viewers of like what is actually the story, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
so I actually kind of like how they're playing it out. So I'm still at like a seven and a half for at least the whole show and for this episode. Like I enjoyed it. It
Yeah.
wasn't
Mm-hmm.
as quick as it was for action packed and everything, but I think the kind of duality of everything I really like about it, and so that's what it kept me intrigued about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna stick with a 7 out of 10 for this one. I agree with you. Star Wars Politics, 7 out of 10. It was good. I'm still sticking with like a 7.5 out of 10 for the entire show as well. Um, but I'm with you, Tony. I mean, I'm listening for clues. I'm like, okay, shedding light on, the only thing I wish we could have got more of in this episode was maybe a little bit more insight on what actually happened. They're
Yes.
really dragging that out,
Yes.
um, which is fine, but there's 2 episodes left,
Left, and that's yeah.
and so they're gonna pick up the pace quickly, and I just hope that doesn't hurt the show in the long run,
Yeah.
because I I don't think we're going to get next episode. I don't think is going to be all about the flashbacks, but there are still a handful of scenes from the trailers that we haven't even seen in the show. Um, and so thinking about what happens next, um, I think that we're gonna go to. I think that from what we can decipher from the trailers is Soul is gonna go to Brindok. That's where he's going when he gets out of hyperspace. He's going to Brindok. I think that Kymir and May will go to or Osha will go to Brindok, and like you said, we'll kind of get a meeting of the minds, and we'll finally get to see what actually happened, which will then culminate into the finale episode, and who knows what we're gonna get. I'm wondering if maybe we
Because I
could even see Osha kill Saul.
which that's kind of after this episode, my prediction maybe has changed of like they're switching places. Like
Mhm.
May is probably gonna become good. Osha's probably turning bad, and then because they're kind of longing for the opposite thing. And that's
Mhm.
kind of why I like the duality of the thing. Osha's looking for her to be able to like use and process her emotions of everything and not be so disciplined like the Jedi probably wanted her to because she said
Mhm.
in this episode like I failed. So she failed a test, failed whatever was going on within the order that she
Mhm.
felt like she needed to leave. Kind of like not necessarily Ahsoka, but she felt like the Jedi had given up on her. She probably
The
gave up
Jedi
on
failed her,
herself.
yeah.
Right. And so like that's kind of from her perspective. And May is really just once again kind of looking for the family, kind of looking for the order, so to speak, of
I
like
don't know what May wants.
I still don't know what May wants, but it's the family part. And so I think what Soul's gonna offer is like, let's get and that's what he kind of offered her at the end of this episode was like, we're gonna go get Osha, we're gonna go destroy your master, but then you basically kind of get the family back essentially. And
Mhm.
that's kind of his pitch to her.
Well, and to bring it back to Osha and the stranger Kymir, at the beginning of this, we talked about the fact that we hear Kylo Ren's theme. We actually hear it in this episode too. At one point, actually, is when she's about to put the helmet on. Um, we hear Kylo Ren's theme, and we hear it twice in episode 5. Every time it's when we see Osha, not Kymir. Um, and if just going off of the simplest of simple similarities, it's a once Jedi who is failed, maybe failed by their master. It kind of
Mhm.
seems like Osha was maybe failed by Soul,
Mhm.
and Soul. It has a lot of connections to the Last Jedi. Is kind of what it's boiling down to. You have the potential Octu connection as um, uh, Eddie from on program was saying the duality of the light and the dark. Luke training Ray, Chimera training Osha, potentially on the same planet. But you also have Luke, who failed his apprentice, who then turned to the dark side and became Kylo Ren. And then you have Master Saul, who, by all and by all measures, is seeming to have failed Osha in some way, and now she's turning to the dark side. Um, that's at the most basic level what the similarities are. Is you have a past Jedi who's making their turn um, to the dark side. So. Um, let's see here. LEB just hopped in the chat. Good to see LEB. Says, howdy, guys. I'm all the way up in Maine, so I can't stay long. No problem. I'm just glad to have you here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Before we take off from the stream, there's a couple things I wanted to bring up. Brought it up last week, but in the community tab, if you scroll down, you'll find a picture of the Jedi that you see in my avatar. We are trying to find names for this Jedi avatar. So if you want to be a part of the channel and create a name for this Jedi, go find that picture in the community tab and just comment on the picture what you want the Jedi's name to be. Once we get enough names and we kind of get a consensus for which names we might like, we're going to poll the senators, the members of the channel. So if you want to become a member, just hit that join button. There's also a link in the description of this video. Become a member. It's only $2.99. You get access to loyalty badges, custom emojis, the Discord audio channel, but you're also going to be able to vote and have the final say on what this Jedi's name is going to be. And then I'm working with the Skywalker Academy, and we're going to be creating a audiobook / novel for this character. And so if you want to have a say in his story, become a member. It would mean a lot. It's a great way to support the channel. So yeah, help me find a name for this Jedi. But anyway, I think that pretty much sums up thoughts on the Acolyte episode 6. Looking forward to next week. And yeah, I think it's a solid 7 out of 10. Any last words, Journeyman?
Nope. Solid episode. Enjoyed everyone here.
Yeah, I think it was good. And just for fun,
I am the Senate.
be with you all, always.